In the last stream, we were working on massively upgrading our power production by setting up our first very basic power setup with the energizing orb and right now just the one energizing rod. We use this to craft all the way up to the spirited crystals, the second highest tier crystal that you can get from the power mod, and we used that to make our first spirited magmator capable of producing 8,000 redstone flux per tick when fed lava. And between streams, I've gone ahead and made a few more of the specific crystals, those being the spirited, the nilotic, and the blazing, required in order to make another one of these magmators right away at the start of today's stream. It's not strictly necessary at the moment. I think we do have an excess of power with the one magmator that we have down in the nether, but I figured we might as well go ahead and kind of preemptively get a second one of these down, just so that we do have a big enough power buffer that hopefully in today's stream we can finally fully automate the production of PCBs. We're very close to being able to do that already. We have a lot of the parts automated, and in fact we have already requested that our system make a few of them for us, but there are a couple little bits and pieces that we've not quite fully automated yet that are going to stop us from fully requesting however many of these we actually want. Now, between streams, I have gone ahead and done a little bit of reorganizational work. As you may be able to see here, I have reconfigured the layout of these pressure chambers so that now the input is on the top and the output is on the back. That just makes it a little bit cleaner for our item pipes here, which I do need to go ahead and set to extract. And then I've gone ahead and moved the pressure input to the bottom. And so now we have our pressure tube running from our liquid compressors round, down, and it goes into the bottom of all of those pressure chambers there. Again, I think it just looks a little bit nicer, a little bit less haphazard. And I've also done the same here. I've moved the ME pattern provider down to the bottom of this oak chest and just run an item pipe from this chest to that pattern provider, as opposed to the over-the-top pipe that we had previously that I just don't really think looked that good. And so what I am going to do here is I'm going to head back through to the nether. I'm going to quickly throw down this second magmator, and then we really just need to automate the production of a few small crafts, and we should be pretty much good to go on the finished PCB. Right here, I think all we really need to do is place this down like that, make sure that the fluid cell is set to auto-eject to the back, like so. That should go ahead and start to fill this up with lava. It does, and then from there, we can actually turn our jetpack on that we did get as well at the very end of the last episode, and we can then move the flux plug around to here. That's going to allow it to connect to both magmators simultaneously, giving us access to the full 16,000 redstone flux per tick. And so now hopefully we won't have to worry too much about our power situation, at least for the remainder of today's episode, although the alk furnace does require a staggering amount of power to run at full speed, and so it's quite possible that once we get the titanium automation up and running, which is one of the things we do need to automate for the production of empty PCBs here, we might start to see that power buffer diminish fairly quickly. Before we get started on that though, I do at some point in today's stream want to start looking at this chapter 4B Living Age questline. And crucially, over here on the left, we get into the Nature's Aura mod, and to do that, we need a surprising number of these gold leaves. And to get those, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and purchase initially these brilliant fibers from the store. To do that, we do need to get a tier 3 trade permit, and I believe we have already made a tier 3 trade permit, but I believe there's also 2 types of tier 3 trade permit. Oh no, we've made the tier 4 trade permit, I believe, but I think we might have skipped over the tier 3 trade permit. For this, we just need one finished PCB with 8 poppies. That really shouldn't be too difficult for us to do. We have a staggering number of bones in the system now thanks to our mob farm, and if we take those bones over to the grass over here, we should hopefully be able to get enough poppies fairly quickly to make that permit. And a quick half stack of bone meal later, we have enough poppies to craft the permit, which we can go ahead and shift click into the shop, at which point we can then go ahead and buy some of these brilliant fibers here. That will tick off the first part of this quest, but in order to get these gold leaves, we have to take a sapling, plant that down somewhere. For now, we're going to do this kind of over here. Let's do something like this, and let's also quickly move back in range so we can grab a little bit more bone meal as well. And these kind of work like the silkworms from ex nihilo, if you've played with that mod. Essentially, all we have to do is right-click these brilliant fibers onto the leaves. That leaf will then become golden, and it will slowly become more and more golden. Once it becomes fully golden, it will then spread to adjacent leaves, and if you break a fully golden leaf, you will get some of the gold leaf item, which is what we're going to need to progress forward. And so the reason I'm doing this right at the start of the episode is that we're going to give it time to kind of slowly but surely spread throughout the tree. I don't know if you can just kind of spam these. It does mention in here that we should be careful. Aura is a source of life. Don't grow too greedy. So I don't know if there's a problem that occurs if we put too many of these in one tree all at the same time. But for now, we'll just leave that as is and kind of let it do its thing. And hopefully when we come back later in the stream, we should have a lot of gold leaves that we can use to get a lot of gold leaf. And so back over here, if we want to finish automating the production of PCBs, which is kind of becoming essential because we're getting rather low on funds, we need to automate just a few more things. Those things are the copper wire, because the capacitors, transistors, and compressed mechanisms are all fully automated already. And then on top of that, we also need to automate the aforementioned titanium plates, the circuit backplanes, and the electrum wire. I think if we can get these 4 items automated, we should be able to just request that PCBs be made for us, and the system should just make them. So for the most part, it's just a case of shift-clicking recipes into the pattern encoder here. For example, the copper wire can be made using the metal press, and I think this is the recipe that we're going to use. The same is true for the electrum as well. One quick thing here, you do want to make sure that you left-click to get rid of the metal press mold. The metal press mold is required for the recipe, but we're not going to have the AE2 system send the metal press mold to the system to make it craft. It's just going to be inside of the metal press at all times. And so those should be fairly straightforward. All we should have to do is get a few more of these ME pattern providers, and using the pre-existing metal press that we already have, if we were to go ahead and have our pattern provider, I think just point directly into the metal press like that, that I think would work. We might have to put like a hopper or a chest with an item pipe here potentially, but I'm fairly certain that this should get the job done, and all we should have to do is swap out the rod mold that is currently in there for a wire mold. Now, I don't believe that we currently have the wire mold. We don't. However, we do have our engineer's workbench, and we do have the mold blueprint, and so we should be able to make this fairly easily with 3 steel plates and 1 set of wire cutters. We do have 4 steel plates, which is perfect. Boom and boom. And so now if we go ahead and just right click this on here, all we would need to do then is pipe from this chest round back into the pattern provider. And of course we would have to connect the pattern provider up to our AE2 system. But once that is done, this should be good to go. Now, in order to fully automate that, we would also have to automate the production of electrum. Thankfully, that's also not particularly difficult for us to do. We can go ahead and make electrum by sending just gold and silver through to our induction smelter, and we did actually set up the automation for the induction smelter in the last episode. And so if we throw that into this pattern provider, that should be electrum good to go. And of course, gold and silver are already being made on the lower levels of the platform. As for the circuit backplane here, this is in fact also made in the induction smelter, and so again, we should just be able to shift-click that in. Duraplast sheets we already have. We are going to have to connect those up to our AE2 system, but once we do, it's just a case of teaching it how to make these copper sheets. For the copper sheets, I do think that it's probably going to be worth investing in a multi-servo press here, just for the ease of automation. You've seen how easy it is for us to automate the induction smelter. The same is kind of true here for the multi-servo press. It does require 2 Constantan gears. Thankfully, we have all of the Constantan required to make that. And so now we can just add this to our pre-existing line of machines down here, like this. Make sure we put a pattern provider above it, like so. These usually do want to be pointing downwards, like this, this, and this. That should work just fine. In here, set the top to both input and output, and make sure auto eject and auto input are enabled. And now this is ready to automate. Over here is where we want the backplane. Perfect. And then back up here, we should just be able to go ahead and shift click in the recipe for copper plates. Encode. Nice. And again, we can use our pattern access terminal up here to automatically place these items into the corresponding pattern providers without having to go down to them. I would do well to bear that in mind going forward. And so now it should really just be the titanium plate. Again, another multi-servo press recipe. We'll go ahead and encode that. But that, of course, is just the final step of the process. We first have to get the titanium, which is actually done inside of the arc furnace with the hop graphite dust and rutile dust. So we can encode this like so. And I believe we should just be able to place down one of these ME pattern providers onto the arc furnace itself. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think we should be able to insert both of these via the same input. Let me give that a try though. If I come over here, do we have any hop graphite dust? We do. Do we have any rutile dust? We do not. In order to get the rutile dust to make this work, we do have to crush the raw rutile that we can buy from the shop. And right now, I think really the only way we can do that is either with another set of crushing wheels or with a crusher from Immersive Engineering. And I think we're going to go with the crushing wheels here because the crusher is good and is fast, but it has a weird buffer system to where I think we would end up just buying an infinite amount of rutile and the crusher would just store all of that rutile inside of it and then just slowly but surely give us the dust over time, but the buffer would just keep filling and filling and filling, and I think we would lose all of our money very, very quickly. And so, real quick, let me go ahead and throw down another set of crushing wheels. This time, we're going to have the crushing wheel set up in such a way that we can place down a ME pattern provider on top of the crushing wheels to allow us to fully automate the production of that rutile dust. All right, so not too long later, I've thrown down 2 more crushing wheels, just next to the pre-existing crushing wheels because it made it easy to connect them to our current energy transmitter. And then up here we have our pattern provider pointing down into the chute. Again, I think this should just work. That's then going to go down and provide the items to this chest. And then we have an item pipe that extracts it back up to the provider. This cable looks horrendous. A lot of this looks a little horrendous currently. That's mostly due to the fact that we've yet to fully retrofit the integrated dynamic system. The plan going forward is almost certainly going to be to kind of fully take out the integrated dynamic system and replace it with a mixture of applied energistics for item and fluid transfer, along with the newly made flux network system for moving power to everywhere that needs power. But right now we're kind of in a bit of a transition phase, and so there's a lot of pipes and cables running around that kind of need to take up the same space. So for now, we have this cable that runs down, it connects up to this pattern provider, and then down here, it runs straight down, and I've connected it to the dense cable that we set up in the last stream. I do believe that we should still be well below the channel limit. We are indeed, we're at 15 out of 32 channels, so we do still have some space there. That should mean now that the different kind of wires are craftable, which they are. You can tell by the little plus icon in the top left corner of the inventory slot there. And now we should be able to go ahead and teach our system how to make that rutile dust. If we just go ahead and shift click that in up here, again, this is one of those situations where there's a chance that you get a second one, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell the system that when you put in 1 raw rutile, you get 1 rutile dust out, because trying to set this up in such a way that it thinks it can get 2 25% of the time is just not going to work, and I think it's going to cause more of a headache than it's worth going forward. Now, over here, now that we have the ability to request that rutile dust, let me go ahead and test it. I'm going to request 64, start, and of course, to do that, we do of course have to have rutile dust available, which currently we do not. I'm going to go ahead and buy a stack of rutile dust, and we'll throw that in the system. I'm then going to request that stack of rutile, and start. That should begin working over here. It looks like it is. Fantastic. And it looks like it's fairly fast as well, which is good. And then over here, I was going to test if we can put both the rutile dust and the hop graphite dust into the same slot. The answer there is no. I'm fairly certain that we need the hop graphite in a different slot. And I think that the way that works is we probably have to have the hop graphite sent to the other input, this one right here. So if I put these both in here, I'm fairly certain that puts it into the other slot. It does. Okay, so it gets a little bit trickier here, but not really too difficult for us. All we should have to do is get another pattern provider, place that down somewhere like this so it connects to the chest, make sure it's pointing at the chest, and then from there, all we're going to do is we're going to have 2 item pipes like this, and from there, we are going to have to get some pipe upgrades. We do already have one. Essentially, we're going to set both of these to extract, and using this pipe upgrade, we're going to put it in, and we're going to add the hop graphite to the whitelist on this side, and it defaults to whitelist here. You can change it to blacklist if you want, but we're going to leave it at whitelist, and so all of the hop graphite is going to be extracted down into this input slot, and then if we can get another one of those diamond pipe upgrades, which is easier said than done because they do require quite a few blocks of redstone. Thankfully, our system does know how to make blocks of redstone, and so we can just request those and then craft the upgrade. We can then do the exact same thing on this side, but this time add in the rutile dust to the whitelist. And so now, if the system were to try the craft, it would send the 1 hop graphite dust and the 8 rutile dust to the arc furnace. That puts both items in their correct inventory slots, and then from there, we just need to get even more item pipes here so that we can then extract from the output, which I believe is this right here. I don't think it's the front here, although I could be wrong on that because it does look, no, it is the front here because you'll see at the top there, it does show the 8 titanium ingots. And so we just need to extract from there, round and up into here like this. And that should be the very last bit of automation that we need to do. So let me set that to extract. That's going to pull those out, send them back around to the system. And so now the system should know how to make titanium. And with that, I believe all of the automation is in place. The only thing that isn't in place now is all of these drawers being connected to our system. Because as we've seen multiple times over the past few episodes, we don't have oak available to the system. And by that, I mean these oak planks that we have available to our integrated dynamic system, they're not available to our AE2 system. And so I think what we're going to want to do here is grab another draw controller like this, and we're definitely going to want to have one of those over here somewhere. And I'll move that in just a second, but we're going to want to have one of these down with another external storage, just like we've done over here. But there is a max range on the storage controller, and that max range is 12 blocks. So you can only go out 12 blocks in each direction, which means we can't connect our oak plank draw to that old draw controller. We're going to need a second draw controller that we use to connect all of these drawers up, and then we're going to need, I think, a third draw controller that we use over here to connect up things like the Duraplast sheets. And speaking of the Duraplast sheets here, these do kind of provide another issue in and of themselves, and that issue, as we saw before, is that if this system just keeps running, it will continue to produce Duraplast sheets that it just spits out into the world. And so we kind of need to set up a system that turns off the bottling machine when we have however many Duraplast sheets we want. There are a few ways you can do this. There are redstone upgrades that you can make for the oak draw here. That's this guy right here. Fairly easy to make, just some redstone comparators and a storage draw with a bunch of redstone. And this allows the draw to emit a redstone signal. I'm being told that slot 1 is the slot that we're after there, which makes sense. It says slot 1. And I was under the impression that we would have to run redstone round to the front here because this is usually what controls it. But I think just putting the redstone there seems to do the trick. Now, I think there is a potential here that this will continue to emit a redstone signal until this draw is empty, at which point it will then re-engage the system. But for now, I think that's actually completely fine. So we can go ahead and put this back in, and you'll see it's not going to go across the bottling machine because of the fact that that redstone signal is there, preventing this from working. But once we burn through all of the Duraplast sheets that are in here, it should then continue making more Duraplast sheets and will only ever turn off again once it fills up, which is good. And so real quick, I'm going to go ahead and connect up this draw controller over here to all of the drawers over here with a linking tool. And I think we do already have a couple of external storage buses right here so that we can connect these up because we had them on our chests previously. And so we're going to put one on this drawer, and then I'm going to make another drawer and put that down over here so that we can connect up things like our hop graphite dust and our Duraplast sheets. All right, so not too long later, and we have one draw controller right about here in the middle of this platform with these two drawers, the Duraplast and the hop graphite set up. And then over here, we have another storage drawer controller right here. And this one is connected to many, many more storage drawers, almost all of them, apart from this one right here, because I don't think that needs to be connected because all of the items in here get piped round into this pattern provider anyway. And so, yeah, now all of that stuff should be accessible in the system. It is. You'll see we have access to all of the oak planks, which you love to see. And essentially down here, I just ran a cable along. It's the same channel that connects to our mob farm right here. And then over here, I just connected again to the dense cable that's already running under the platform. And with that, I think we actually now finally have the ability to fully request the PCBs. That's not quite true, actually. We have one, I think, final piece of the puzzle left, and then is to put a pattern provider onto this guy right here so that we can automate the production of these electronic components. And if we do 1, 2, 3, 4, of course, we're just missing a couple of item pipes. We should definitely, and there it is, teach our system how to automate this for us. Let's do one of these. Let's also go ahead and teach it how to make the droppers. And of course, it already knows how to make the compressed mechanisms. That is not going to be an issue. You're going to go in there. You're going to go in there. This pattern for the titanium does indeed need to go in over here. And we do, of course, still need to connect that up. We'll do that in just a second once we have taught our system how to do this recipe right here. Again, this is one of the situations where we want to get rid of the crafting blueprint because, of course, that is not required. All we want to do is put this pattern in like so. Quickly request that our system make some item pipes for us, at which point we should then be able to take those and run them like this, and then set that to extract. And then from there, it should just be a case of getting even more of this Fluix cable so that we can hopefully connect up both this ME pattern provider, which is going to be easier because we do already have channels right here, and this ME pattern provider, which is going to take a bit more cable, but again, should be fairly straightforward. Alright, so that is now connected up. Chat has pointed out that I've been a bit of a fool here in that this item pipe is supposed to connect back to here, not to that chest. So if we do something like this, we want to make sure that this doesn't connect. We can do that with a quick shift right click twice and then get rid of this one. And now that should work. And with that, I think that we are fully good to go. So now we can kind of pivot back to the requester that I mentioned a few episodes ago. This thing is not too difficult to make, but it does require that we first get another ME interface. Did we teach our system how to make the interfaces? I am going to assume we didn't because it didn't show up blue when I hovered over it here, but it should be fairly easy for us to encode that and then of course add it to our molecular assembler, like so. And then from there, we're just missing 2 crafting co-processing units. We did mention these a little bit in a previous episode, and these are definitely going to be useful for us in the future. For now, we just need some more of these integrated circuits, which we are kind of running low on, but hopefully as soon as we automate the process of getting finished PCBs here, it's going to be incredibly easy for us to automate those integrated circuits as well. And so let's go ahead and quickly request some more Fluix cable. We also do want to teach our system how to make the Fluix crystals sooner rather than later as well. That should be fairly straightforward, but for now, let's go ahead and craft up 2 crafting co-processing units. That should basically be everything that we need to get an ME requester. This thing is super nifty in that we can place it down really wherever we like, so long as it's connected to the AE2 system. And now in here, we can use these slots on the left to specify items that we want to keep stocked in the system. For example, right now we have 15 finished PCBs. Let's say that we wanted to keep a stack of PCBs in the system at all times. I believe to do that, we would go over here. We type amount to stock, 64. Okay, so that doesn't work. Maybe we have to put the item in first. And then batch size is currently set to 1. I believe if you increase the batch size, that's just going to request more of these at once. We'll leave it at 1 for now. I think that's fine. Let me put the PCB in like this. And amount to stock, let's say 64. Submit changes. As soon as we do that, that is immediately going to start a cascade of crafting requests to keep those in store. You'll see right now, it's just doing the basics because initially we do have empty PCBs and we've got unassembled PCBs in the system ready to go. As soon as those initial crafts finish though, what we should see is more crafts being requested to make more of the subcomponents required for all of the PCBs. One thing we've not done yet that we should do is I think we should go around to our ME pattern providers, and I think we want to change the lock crafting mode here. Right now it's set to lock never. I think we want to change that to until the primary crafting result is returned. And specifically, I think we want to do this on all of our pressure chambers, because what's going to happen by default here, if we, for example, need like 64 transistors, I think there's a chance that if we don't have this lock mode set to wait until the primary crafting result is returned. It's just going to try and dump a ton of items into the pressure chamber, and there's a possibility that we end up in a situation like we've ended up with over here. This does need fixing, by the way, but the trouble here is that too much iron has made its way in, despite the fact that we've got a bunch of compressed iron in here, and now the system can't really work because there's way too much iron in here to convert into compressed iron, and basically by switching the locking mode here, the system is now going to only send one items worth of stuff into the system. So here, for example, it's going to send one circuit backplane, one titanium plate, and 6 electron wires, and then it will not send anything else until that craft is complete, until the system registers that the item has been returned, at which point it will then start the next craft. It does make it slightly slower, but it makes it way less likely that things go wrong. And so I think, for the most part, this should just be working now. We've got 13 PCBs, and as you can see, more stuff is being crafted and more stuff is being scheduled, and hopefully things here should just work. And it looks like they are. These PCBs are being made, that's all good. Up here between streams, when I did redo this, I did make sure that all of the pressure chamber interfaces, both the inputs and the outputs, all have the max 10 speed upgrades, so all of those pressure chambers should be as fast as possible. Of course, as you can see here, as we get further and further down the chain, we're going to start to request more and more stuff, because we need more and more stuff, but you'll see all that stuff is being done. I'm going to do the same thing here, actually. I'm going to say until primary crafting result is returned, because this is also another one where, because there are 3 slots in the induction smelter, sometimes if you try and request both an electrum ingot and a redstone ingot at the same time, it can end up putting gold, silver, and redstone in, and that doesn't make anything. It just stops the whole thing from working. So I think we do want locking mode on the induction smelter. It doesn't matter so much on the multi-servo press or the pulverizer, because these both only have the 1 input slot, but on machines like this, I think that could, again, just kind of prevent some headaches in the future. And so it's of course going to take a while to get this backlog, but the system is now just kind of in the background making stuff for us all the time. For now, I want to let those do their thing and let us get more PCBs. In fact, I'm going to take the 37 that we have out, and I'm going to immediately sell them to take us back up to a modest 2.5 million. Still not ideal, but better than we were at. Instead, I want to pivot back, though, to the start of the episode when we put down these golden leaves. Now, I did make one slight mistake at the start of the episode, and that is that I put all of these down next to lava, and so the 2 trees on the end have indeed just turned to ash, but all of the rest of the trees are mostly fine. And so we should be able to break all of these to get a decent number of gold leaves. And I'm just going to go ahead and tear all of these down. And then I'm probably going to go ahead and throw down a few more trees here, because I think we are going to need potentially more than a stack and 17 gold leaves. This time, let's try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then hopefully that's good. Maybe 7, 8, like that. Okay, we'll see if that works faster or better or worse. Now, in order to get started with Nature's Aura, one thing that we are going to need, I think, is much more space. And so I think what I'm going to do, again, whilst we wait for these leaves to transform, and whilst we wait for even more of our PCBs to come in, which they are, slowly but surely, I am going to go ahead and build probably another fairly large grass platform over at the end here, kind of mimicking maybe what we have over on this side. Real quick, I was just taking a look at the system, and you'll see it says missing ingredients. The ingredient that it said it was missing was electrum, and that's because in here, so this recipe is the electrum wire recipe. This wants to use the electrum from thermal expansion, not the electrum from immersive engineering. Very weird when it does this. I don't see an option to turn off exact mode, and so I think you just have to get the right electrum in when you do this. So sometimes if you shift right click, it's just not going to work correctly. But I think now that should work, and if I go and put this back into here, this should continue to work. Alright, so we've got a new grass platform over here, but we have run into another compatibility issue here, and that is because this recipe for the circuit backplane uses the wrong kind of copper sheet. Again, a little bit awkward, but if we just go ahead and request a normal copper sheet, that being this one from the Enigmatica mod, we should be able to go ahead and replace that, although I think you can actually, if I type in copper sheet, I'm fairly certain you can drag this from JEI, and this is actually a copper plate, not a copper sheet. Yes, you can indeed click and drag those, so you don't have to have one. Let's re-encode that with the correct copper plate, and that should kick things, again, back into gear. So that's going in right about there. That should go ahead and almost immediately start requesting that craft again. Perfect. We could do with making these machines faster, because this is kind of a bottleneck for us right now. But for the most part, everything there is working, and we have now a new grass platform on the other side of the base, kind of perfectly mirroring the grass platform that we have with the train on it. And so now over here, we should be able to start using our gold leaves to get into all of the magic mods that we have here. Botania, Nature's Aura, and Ars Nova. So to start with, let's use these gold leaves that we've got. So this quest wants us to get 8 wooden stands along with 16 gold powder. The gold powder, super easy. You just craft gold leaf into gold powder, and 8 gold leaves will get us 16 gold powder. We're going to do quite a bit of this stuff, so getting extra here is fine. And then as far as the wooden stands go, we just need some logs with the gold leaf, and again, we need 8 of these in total. And one of the quest rewards here did give us the Book of Nature's Aura, and in here, if we go to Natural Practices and Ritual of the Forest, we can get a visualization for what it is that we need to set up initially here. So let's go ahead and put this down kind of on the far side of the platform, because there are going to be quite a few structures that we do need to set up over on this platform here. But essentially, all we need to do is throw down our wooden logs where we're shown. We then need to put down our gold powder, which kind of goes down like gold redstone, like this. And then in the middle, we put down a sapling. It's showing an oak sapling here, but apparently according to the book, it can be a number of different saplings depending on which ritual it is that you're doing. For us, an oak sapling will do the trick. And essentially, the way this works, if you want to craft something, for example, we want to craft the Nature's Altar. You put the required items onto the pedestals around the sapling, and then you can either use bone meal or time to allow the tree to grow, and once the tree has grown, all of the items will be consumed, the tree will disappear, and the item that you are trying to craft will appear in its place. So right here, if we want to make Nature's Altar, we need 3 stone, 1 gold ingot, 1 gold leaf, and 1 token of joy. The token of joy here is also made on this altar. To make this, we need an apple, an iron, a gold leaf, a torch, any kind of small flower, and then bottled sunshine. So first things first, we do have an apple, which I'm glad to see, because that could have been awkward if we had to go and grab one of those from a tree. Let's do apple, let's do torch. We then also need 1 gold leaf. By the way, the order of these does not matter. You can put them down on any pedestal you want. So long as they all go down, everything will work just fine. 1 iron ingot is going to go down right about here. And then on top of that, we need that aforementioned either a poppy or a dandelion. Thankfully, we do have 39 dandelions in the system, so we'll do something like that. And then finally, we need this bottled sunshine. And this is where we kind of have to take a bit of a detour, actually, because I'm fairly certain to get the bottled sunshine, we have to go through Botania, because you'll see right here that the bottled sunshine is acquired using a bottle and cork. And in this pack, the bottle and cork requires living wood from Botania. So here, we need to first get floral fertilizer. Over here, floral fertilizer, I believe, is purchasable from the system. It is indeed. We'll buy a couple of these floral fertilizers. Didn't mean to buy a lead coin. We can thankfully sell that back to the store. And for those who don't know, with floral fertilizer, you can right-click on Grace, and it will grow these mystical flowers of various different colors. Now, one thing we might want to do right at the start of the episode here is invest in a flower pouch. This is going to prevent our inventory from getting filled up with random flowers. To make a flower pouch, we need 1 mystical petal. Any color will do, so you just take a flower and craft it into 2 of that color's petal. Here we have 2 mystical gray petals, and then if you combine 5 wool with any color petal, you get a flower pouch, and now going forward, we can store all of our flowers in that flower pouch, and more importantly, when we do this and we start to harvest these flowers, they will automatically go into the flower pouch instead of clogging up our inventory, because of course, with this being Minecraft, there are 16 different possible colors of flower, and so you can very quickly end up with a very full inventory of all of the different colors of flowers if you don't start out with the pouch. Now, specifically here, we were looking for the white flower, which I believe we actually already have. We do indeed. Once you have 1 flower, you can craft that into petals, of course, as we saw before, but then you can take these petals, plant those down, and if you make these grow, you can then reharvest the flowers again. And so I'm fairly certain that in this pack, we can take our hoe, place that in our offhand, and then if we shift near these mystical petals, I'm hopeful that they grow into tall flowers. Nice. At which point we can break them, This time around, we get the tall mystical white flowers, which are different to the regular flowers in that you get twice as many petals back. So we just turned 2 mystical white petals into 2 tall plants, which we then turned into 8 white petals. And now we can do the same again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We can grow all of those very quickly with our hoe. We can use Ultimine to harvest all of them, so long as we're set to shapeless. And then we can go ahead and craft all of those down out of our pouch here into 32 of these mystical white petals. And so you really don't need that much floral fertilizer. You really just need enough floral fertilizer to get 1 of each color, which I don't think we have yet. Never mind, we totally do. We've got everything apart from white, and of course white we already have. We've just been using it to craft other petals. So I will use the last 2 floral fertilizer here just because we have it and we might as well. But now with the mystical white petals, we should be able to craft up a pure daisy. To do that, we first have to get a petal apothecary. This is made in our crafting table with cobblestone and again, any color of petal. It really doesn't matter which color you use. And for this, we are going to need some water. And so I do think it's probably going to be in our best interest to grab another sink here as well, just so that we have an infinite supply of water next to our petal apothecary. It's going to make using the petal apothecary much easier going forward because every single craft in the petal apothecary does require 1 bucket of water. And so for that, we are really just missing 1 bucket of water. So let me grab one of those. Let me also grab a bucket from our pre-existing sink over here. And then as soon as all of that clay is done, we should be able to craft a new sink, take the bucket with us, and now going forward, we can just go ahead and extract from this sink, like so, and put it in the petal apothecary. Unfortunately, you can't pipe into the petal apothecary, I don't believe, so you can't put a fluid pipe down between the sink and the petal apothecary. It just doesn't receive water that way. But in here, we can go ahead and drop 1, 2, 3, 4 of these white petals in, and you'll see there that that is the correct recipe for a pure daisy. All you need to do to finish the craft is grab any seed you want. We've got a ton of these industrial hemp seeds, and so for now, drop that in with Q, and we get a pure daisy. Nice. And at this point, we're basically there in terms of getting to this bottle with cork, because now all we need to do is place down the pure daisy, surround that with oak logs, like so, and that's going to begin to slowly but surely transform those oak logs into living wood, although I am looking at this and realizing that I think the recipe has been changed. And so if we check back in the quest book here, in order to make living wood, we of course need treated planks. Yes, why wouldn't we need treated planks? That makes a tremendous amount of sense. I did notice that we do need reinforced stone in order to make living rock, so it does make some sense that we would need treated wood here. It does make me think that we should probably move this setup, or at least this part of the setup, so that we can get an actual buffer of treated wooden planks, so we have them kind of ready to go as and when we need them in the future, because we might actually need quite a few of these. But if we put 8 of these treated wooden planks down around the pure daisy, like this, when you see the particle effect, you'll know that it's actually working, and after about 90 seconds, or about a minute or 2, you should see this transform from treated wooden planks into living wood. You can make this faster, of course, by using the time in a bottle on the pure daisy, and that should transform those much, much faster. And it does. Nice. And so here we can take our Paxel, we can break all of the logs, and we can craft those logs into living wood planks. And as we saw before, if we want to get this bottled sunshine, it's just 1 glass bottle with 1 living wood plank, all of which we now have. Glass bottle and plank. Those glass bottles, I believe we're getting from witches in the mob farm. And we'll come back to this in a second because I do actually want to complete this quest before we go any further. And so ideally, we would take some reinforced stone, which of course we do not have. That would be far too easy. Instead, we are going to have to craft some reinforced stone, like so. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll place this down around the pure daisy, and that is going to convert the reinforced stone into living rock. And that's going to be useful later on down the line for these effigies. We'll get to that in the future though. For now, we can claim our rewards, and we can make some bottled sunshine by simply right-clicking this bottle and cork here in the overworld. As soon as we have that, we can place it onto one of our wooden stands. We can place our sapling back in the middle. Assuming we have all 6 items down, which we do, we can then go ahead and grab our hoe. We can shift to make this tree grow, at which point we'll see all of the items start to disappear. And once they're gone, we should then see the tree itself disappear. And in its place, we get a token of joy. Nice. We do also lose the gold powder as well. This is why we need so much of the gold leaf, because the gold leaf is used for the gold powder, and we need even more of that going forward. But now we should be able to make the nature's altar. We just need to put the right things on. So 1 token of joy, 1 gold leaf, along with 3 stone and 1 gold. That is perfectly fine. We should probably look at adding some range add-ons to our wireless access terminal, because we are a little bit light on range. It doesn't quite reach all the way out to the new platform here, but if we do 3 stone and 1 gold, we can then put another sapling in the middle like this, and we do want to make sure that we have enough gold powder here to surround this again. So if memory serves me right, I think it looks like this to make it work, and we of course need even more gold leaf, which I think we have. We totally do. So let me clear this out. Let's do this, and let's do this. I was going to shift click them, but I don't want that much gold powder. Instead, I just want enough to do this, and again, we should be able to shift with the hoe to make that grow, and if everything has been done correctly, that should work. Although I'm assuming, by the fact that that didn't work, that I have done this incorrectly. I did not put this in the middle. This is off-centered. That's my bad. Let me tear that down. Let me quickly shimmy this over, and let's try that again, shall we? And there we go. We have ourselves an altar. Nice. So this, again, is another multi-block structure that we're going to have to put down. Let me once again grab the book here. If we go back and if we go over to harnessing aura, we have the nature's altar. So this is, as I said, another multi-block structure that we can visualize. And I'm going to put this down probably right next to our pre-existing setup. So maybe right about here. Yeah, that should work fine. I would prefer it though if it was like centered. So I'm going to put it actually like right here, like this. And that looks pretty good. So for this, we need the altar in the middle. I don't believe there's anything beneath the altar. I think this block is empty, if I'm not mistaken. But we mostly need some planks, which are easy enough. We need some stone bricks, which are also easy enough. And then we also need some chiseled stone bricks and some golden stone bricks, which, you guessed it, require even more gold leaf. Thankfully, we have already automated the production of stone, so getting a stack of stone bricks, easy enough. From there, I believe we can just craft those into the chiseled stone. I think that is probably easiest done potentially just with the chisel. Let me clear my inventory a little bit here. In here, can I just change that into the chiseled stone bricks? I can indeed. Let me take, I guess, half a stack of those. I probably don't need a full stack. We'll do this. Unfortunately, the golden bricks cannot be chiseled. They can be crafted with brilliant fiber, which we can craft, but we can also buy. It's a little bit pricey. It is 5,000 per gold fiber, but we've got a decent amount of money. I'm not too worried about it. Let's go ahead and do something like this. And I don't think we need a ton of these. I think we might need somewhere between 4 and 8. I'm going to craft 8 just to play it on the safe side. Also, real quick, how are we doing on PCBs? It looks like we are good. Like we're fully stocked up with 64. You know what that means? I'm going to take it out. I'm going to go ahead and sell the 64 that we have to give us some more money. And I'm going to get the system working again on giving me another 64. Back over here, let's quickly grab those planks before we move outside of our wireless area. And let's see if we can't get all of this down correctly. All right, so it was, in fact, 8 golden bricks that we needed. And if we do this, I believe that the altar is complete. Nice. And so now we should be able to begin to use this altar. As it mentions in the book here, it says, a rudimentary yet effective way of collecting aura early on is the natural altar. After creating the setup shown on the following page, the altar will start slowly draining aura in the vicinity. However, it's not strong enough to cause major damage, making it only drain until there is none left in the area. The collected aura can then be used as shown on the following pages. And for us, we want to use that aura to craft either an infused iron ingot or a tainted gold ingot. Both of these fairly straightforward. Iron is just iron, and I think gold might just be gold as well. I think both of those might just be placing the ingot on the altar. For example, if I do this, we should see that transform from a gold ingot into a tainted gold ingot. And then if we quickly grab an iron ingot as well whilst we wait here, we should be able to see the same thing happening with an iron ingot. Boom, that's done. Take it off, put the iron ingot on. I'm assuming we could maybe time in a bottle this. I don't know if that's potentially dangerous, but it totally does work. Nice. And so now, back in the quest book here, it wants us to make an offering table. The offering table is not too difficult. It requires some living wood, some stone of any kind, and then a token of sorrow and a token of fear. We, annoyingly, have a token of joy and a token of anger, so we are going to have to make both the sorrow and fear tokens. The sorrow token seems fairly straightforward. 1 bottled sunshine, 1 glass, 1 guest tier, which I think we might have. We do indeed. Fantastic. That would have been the hardest part of the quest. And then 1 of either chicken, beef, or pork. We should be able to get those from our delightful dirt patch that we have fairly close by. And then a fish is probably going to be the hardest part here. We're going to have to do some actual fishing to acquire that. The token of fear, on the other hand, is also fairly straightforward. 1 bone, 1 rotten flesh, 1 feather that we can get by killing a chicken, 1 soul sand, 1 gold leaf, and then 1 bottled ghosts. The bottled ghosts are made in the exact same way as the bottled sunshine, in that we need another cork. The cork should be fairly straightforward, again, because we do have the living wood here. So let me quickly do 1 of these and 1 of these. That can craft us up to 4 of those corked bottles. This time, instead of right-clicking here in the overworld to get bottled sunshine, if you just right-click in the nether, I believe we should get some ghosts. And we totally do. Nice. So those are fairly straightforward. And I am going to go ahead and quickly acquire all of those other items so that we can make the token of sorrow and the token of fear. Alright, and again, not too long later, I think we are ready to go here. This is for the token of sorrow. We have everything we need. We did manage to do a bit of fishing in our tiny little single block of water. Fantastic. And then as for the token of fear, we need a gold leaf, a soul sand, a bottled ghost, a bone, a rotten flesh, and a feather. Most of that stuff we already had in the system. And again, sapling is going to go in the middle, and we're going to place down all of our gold redstone right here, which is like that. And I think that should be everything for us to, again, shift and craft up the token of fear. And that should be everything for the offering table. Again, if we were to check with the book, the offering table requires a very large amount of space, because if we go to entry and we type in offering, the offering to the gods requires a ton of these poppies down around it. And so we are going to have to get a lot more poppies. Again, thankfully, we have got a ton of bones, and so we can get a ton of bone meal, and we can do a lot of bone mealing and harvesting with Ultimine very, very quickly, in fact, to get a ton of leaves and ideally some poppies. I can't help but notice that this is not getting us any poppies. I think that might be to do with the biome that we're in. Again, that's not a problem, because on the other side of the base, this did work, and so really it should just be a case of us ideally getting rid of some of the stuff that we have just put down on the ground here. I don't really want to lose all of these, but if we head to the other side of the base, where the grass is not just metaphorically, but actually greener, we can go ahead and hopefully do some bone mealing over here, and this does actually get us poppies. Okay, so I've been told by the Twitch chat that any flower will work, and we've got way more dandelions than we do poppies here, and so I figured this was worth a try. So in terms of the offering table, we should now be able to make this. We can. And again, in here, we should be able to visualize our offering multi-block. So let's put this down. And annoyingly, I don't think, oh, it could quite possibly just fit right about there. That does work. Okay, so I'll put this in the middle, and then this looks like it works. The progress bar at the top there is filling up, indicating that this is indeed a valid way of building it. And so hopefully, as soon as we throw down our last dandelion, that should complete. It does. And now in here, we can kind of go back a page, and it does say, infused iron is good and well, and has enough natural power to do a variety of things on its own. But for more advanced mechanisms, a more powerful metal is required. For that, and for a lot of other things, the offering to the gods is required. The gods have been, for a long time, the strongest and most powerful beings, and as such, also possess the strongest metal known to men. To construct a way to call the gods themselves, simply place down an offering table with some flowers around it, as depicted on the next page. Then, to start an offering, place any amount of items you want in the offering bowl on the table, and then throw down the item that will call the gods themselves. In most cases, the spirit of calling is what is required. So, for example here, if we wanted to make the altar of birthing, we need these ingots of the skies. The ingots of the skies are made by using the infused iron with the spirit of calling. The spirit of calling is thankfully not too difficult. Bottled sunshine, bottled ghosts, tainted gold, and iron. So my first question actually is, can I put down multiple iron ingots onto here? The answer would appear to be no, unfortunately, but as we saw before, I think we can time in a bottle this, and we should be able to make quite a few of these fairly quickly. This would also, of course, be fairly easy to automate with some item pipes and some whitelists, but again, this shouldn't be too bad. It does take a little bit longer with the gold than with the iron, but for the most part, this is fine. Cool. And so once we have a decent number of these, I'm going to keep going until this time wears off, just so we get the maximum value out of our time in a bottle usage. There we go. And so now back over here, can we make the sigil of calling? I think that we can. Nice. And so now, if we want to create more of these ingots of the skies, I believe that you can put a maximum of 16 ingots on here. That's correct. You'll notice we had 22. And so no matter how many ingots you put on, up to 16, you still only use one spirit of calling. And so I think in an ideal world, just to save on the number of spirits of calling that we have to use, we would probably want to get ourselves at least 16 of these tainted gold ingots. The recipe does also work with the infused iron ingots as well. The only difference being there that you get half as many sky ingots back, so I think it is going to be preferable that we use 16 of the tainted gold ingots instead. All right, so once we have at least 16 of these, we can pop them on like that, and then from there we just drop on this spirit of calling, like so, and if all is right, lightning strikes, and I believe that the items that we want just rain down from the sky. In our case, it should be 32 of these ingots of the sky. Now, I believe that from my testing, they never fall outside of the radius of the dandelions, so although we have built this close to the edge here, it should be that we get all of the ingots that we wanted, and you'll see that we have 32. Nice. And so now, in terms of making the altar of birthing, it's actually not too difficult. We are just missing some hay bales, of all things, which we are going to have to grow some wheat to get, and a token of euphoria, which we get via a token of joy, which thankfully we do still have available from earlier in the episode. And so if we do, again, this and I believe this, that should take our token of joy. Again, we probably could have put more of those tokens of joy on there if we wanted to get even more tokens of euphoria, but again, to be fair, this is not a particularly difficult recipe, and it looks like I might have been wrong, because I think that just fell right off the edge of the platform, and I don't think we actually got the item that we wanted. And so real quick, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take all of these dandelions, I'm just going to move this altar somewhere a little bit more reasonable. All right, so a quick craft of the token of joy again, and a quick moving of the offering table. We should be able to throw these down. Let me see if I can put both of them on here. I can. And then we'll do this, just because the tokens of joy are not that hard to make. If we need more of them, we can always get them. But now we should hopefully see them fall in a better area and hopefully not fall off the edge. Chat is right that we could also put down maybe like an item collector as well if we really wanted to ensure that nothing fell off of the edge, but we should now be able to craft up this altar of birthing. Of course, just as soon as we get some regular seeds, we take our her. The Paxel does not work. It does need to be the her. Boom, boom, and we could use the her here, but we could also just go ahead and do something like this. And if we really wanted to, we could also do something like this as well to get a ton of wheat, at which point we can craft up 2 hay bales and craft up the altar of birthing. Nice. And so the idea behind the altar of birthing here, again, you guessed it, it is another multi-block structure. If we go in here, we go back to index and we type in altar. The altar of birthing looks like this. It's just a bunch of hay bales with some planks and some bricks. These are not regular planks and bricks, but we'll get to that in the future. But this is a multi-block structure. And the idea here is that we can drop certain items onto the top of that structure to summon specific mobs. And what we're going to do next time when we come back is we're going to set up essentially 2 more of these kind of mob crushing cubes, or maybe even 1 more, or maybe 1 big cube that contains both of the altars, because I think what we're going to want to do is have potentially 1, but maybe 2 of these birthing altars to automate the summoning of 2 mobs. Those 2 mobs are the Bazals and the Blizz, because right now we've got Blizz rods from our Blizz spawner, we've got Blizz cubes thanks to the biome that we're in a snowy biome, so the Blizzes are spawning. We need these Blizz motes and these Bazals shards, and so we can use the birthing altar to summon those. If I type in Bazals into JEI and I click on the Bazals spawn egg, we can see that on the altar, if we want to summon a Bazals, we need to drop 1 Spirit of Awakening, 1 Living Rock Effigy, and 1 Cobbled Deep Slate. None of this should be particularly difficult for us to automate. The cobbled deep slate is just another igneous extruder. The living rock effigy is just living rock, which is just the reinforced stone around the pure daisy. That's going to be fairly easy to automate. And then finally, the Spirit of Awakening here just requires the source gems, which do require that we dip our toes into Ars Nouveau, but that is really not going to be too difficult, and it is going to require that we automate the production of amethyst shards. We're already 90% of the way there on automating amethyst shards. They're really not going to be that difficult for us to fully automate going forward, but that is definitely going to be a problem for future Isaac. A problem for current Isaac is that we are once again in the red here, meaning that there is a missing item in the craft for our PCB. To figure that out, I have to go and request a new craft, and you'll see it's gold wire that is the problem. The reason that gold wire is the problem is that we just never taught it to be made. We have to encode that pattern and place it into our pattern provider over here, at which point we should see gold ingots getting sent over. We do, and that is going to get crafted. Real quick, is there anything else I forgot here? I don't think that there is. No, the gold wire is needed for both of these, and now that it's taught, it should just get made. And so hopefully this is just going to keep making PCBs for us. One thing we could do here, if we really wanted to increase the amount of money that we have, is we could look at using an exporter instead of using the requester. The exporter here, not too difficult. It is just some iron, a piston, and a formation core. Crucially though, if we were to go ahead and make a crafting card, this is made again with a basic card with a crafting table, boom. If we were to put this down, let's say right about here, and we were to put down the exporter with the glass cable, that's going to go ahead and export any PCBs that we have. As soon as we set it to PCB, like that, that's just going to take the PCBs out of our system and sell them automatically. What we can do, though, is if we put a crafting card in here, we kind of cut out the middleman, at which point we can disconnect the requester. Or at the very least, we can take the PCB out of the requester and submit changes, because we no longer need the requester here. Basically, what's going to happen now, the exporter over here is going to export any finished PCBs we have, and then if we don't have any finished PCBs, the exporter crafting card is going to request that more PCBs be crafted. And as soon as those PCBs are crafted, it's going to export them, it's going to realize that we don't have any more, and it's going to request more be crafted for us. And essentially, this just takes out the manual work of me manually moving the PCBs from the system to the seller. It does mean we're not going to have any PCBs in the system should we wish to use them, but it also does mean that we are now automatically generating money again, which I think is going to be ideal. And one thing that I did mention earlier that is going to be easy to do now that we have those PCBs is the automation of the integrated circuits, these guys right here. So the packaged integrated circuits are super easy. This is just another recipe that we can place down into this pattern provider. So that's going to make those packaged integrated circuits using the PCBs when we request it. And then on top of that, we can also automate this process right here using a multi-servo press to automate the production of the integrated circuits. Now to do that, we do need a multi-servo press. We did make a multi-servo press earlier. However, this multi-servo press requires a different augment inside of it. So let me make another one of these real quick. As you will have just seen, if we want to automate the unpacking of those integrated circuits with the multi-servo press, we do need an unpacking die. This, thankfully, is fairly straightforward to make here. We need 2 Constantan plates and 2 Invar plates, both of which we should be able to make so long as we have 2 Invar, which we do, and 2 Constantan, which we do. So these can go into the old multi-servo press, because without any kind of augment in it, the multi-servo press will just turn ingots into plates, but this new multi-servo press is going to go down here. Again, auto input, auto output, and then make sure the top is set to input and output. Let me also go ahead and request another pattern provider here that we can place on the top, like so. And of course, we'll take our hammer and make sure that's set to down, like that. I think we're still doing fine on channels. I don't think we have to worry about that just yet. Let's also go ahead and, of course, get ourselves the Constantan plates, which are also going to eject up to the top, at which point we should have everything to make the unpacking die. This just goes into the bottom slot of the multi-servo press. And now, if we were to go ahead and request some of those integrated circuits, the system knows how to make them and will just do the job. And this is a better use case for the ME requester, because now we have 14 of these. Let's say that we always wanted to have a stack of them. We could put them in here. We could say 64, and tick. It does say that it's missing items. Let me put these away, and let's see what it's missing. The thing that it's missing, of course, is the actual pattern itself, and that's because we need to put this pattern right here into this pattern provider. Now that it actually knows how to make those, it should just start doing it, and as we can see here, that craft is being scheduled. Of course, that craft does also involve making PCBs. These PCBs will not be sold because they'll be held inside the CPU until they're turned into integrated circuits, which is exactly what we want. And so just like before now, this is going to keep making integrated circuits until we have 64 of them, and then whenever we use them for making things like the processors here, it's then going to go ahead and make even more of them. That's going to be particularly useful for next time because now we need to work on making these computer cores, and the reason we've done all of the magic stuff today is for these computer cores, because these require all three of the processes, the engineering, the calculation, and the logic, along with thermal paste. And thermal paste is made by combining molten plastic with blaze powder, Basal's powder, and blitz powder. We already have the blaze powder, or the ability to make it, because we have blaze cubes coming in automatically. The same is true for blaze powder. We've got blaze rods coming in automatically. What we don't have is Basal's shards and blitz motes. Both of those are what we're going to get next time using the summoning altar from Nature's Aura. To do that, we are going to have to first dip our toes a little bit into Ars Nouveau, but that should not be too difficult for us. We're also going to have to automate things like the production of living rock here. Again, shouldn't be too difficult, especially with things like the annihilation plane here from Applied Energistics. That should make doing that fairly straightforward, but as I mentioned, those are all problems for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Forever Factory. There